Hey folks, yesterday I did a video, price video on an RX7320 open station and a cab, and if you haven't seen it, it's a heck of a price. It was February, I don't know when you'll be seeing this video, but that video was February 4th of 25. So if you're looking at this in the far, far future, the prices wouldn't apply, but it's a heck of a price. Anyway, get a lot of comments, and Terry Nelson 5396 commented, "Can you do a more in-depth video on the open station? I'm really seriously considering purchasing one." Well, I sure can. So let's do a more in-depth video on the open station RX7320 Power Shuttle, my favorite tractor. All right, let's break this into a couple of sections. The first one will be specs. I'm just going to run through the list of specs, capabilities, weights, things like that, kind of dull. The 7320 and the 6620 do have a few differences in capabilities, things like that, very minor, but I am going to point them out when it does occur. Most of the things are the same. For example, the loader capacity, the loader lift is exactly the same, but some things are not. So I'll be sure and point that out when that happens. And then we'll talk about some standard equipment, comfort and convenience mostly. This is a premium level tractor, and it's expected that the owner of one of these will be on it for 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day, so they're incredibly nice to operate. We'll talk about the couple of options that are available and the operation, a few things about operating this machine, and then if you can stay with me through all of that, we'll take one out and I'll demonstrate how the Power Shuttle works. All right, so when it comes to specs, right off the bat, the engine is a 2.4 liter, 4-cylinder turbo diesel made by Kioti. Kioti makes all their own stuff. Be suspicious of companies that don't. Kioti makes all their own stuff. The horsepower is 73 gross and 66 at the PTO, so 66 net horsepower. And on the RX6620, the numbers are 66 horsepower and 58 at the PTO, so a few less each. The engine runs at 2,600 RPMs. The fuel tank, 22.5 gallons. The transmission is a 12 by 12 forward, 12 reverse Power Shuttle with a thumb clutch. PTO is independent, so it is separate from the transmission. You won't be engaging a clutch and moving a lever to engage the PTO. It's an electric switch, so it's electric over hydraulic PTO, and it also features automatic mode. You could set it in automatic mode, and when you raise your 3-point arms, it temporarily shuts the PTO off until you put the arms back down. It's especially handy if you're doing row work like a tiller. You're going the end of the row, you pick up the tiller, it shuts it off. You turn around, you set the tiller back down, it re-engages it. Very handy. The PTO also features PTO cruise control. What that is when you have your tractor running at the correct RPMs and you're getting your 540 PTO RPMs and you're tooling along and you're maybe mowing and you hit some real heavy grass or you start going uphill, the engine will maintain, if it's set, if you have the PTO cruise control on, the engine will maintain the PTO speed by increasing the RPMs as needed so that you're not constantly bumping up, bumping down the hand throttle and trying to, stay on looking at the tack all the time. It also has an electronic on the same switch. You could push it plus or minus, and much like the cruise control in your car, it increases the RPMs in this case, not the ground speed. It increases the RPMs 50 RPMs with each little click. 50 RPMs up, 50 RPMs down. So if you'd like to bump it a little bit, just do that. As I said, the PTO is well thought out. The hydraulic pump is 19.2 gallons per minute. That's a a hefty number. That's on the 7320. The 6620 has a little bit less at 17.9 gallons per minute. So 19.2 and 17.9 on the 6620. I suppose the little bit of increase is why the 7320 has 2 hydraulic filters, the 6620 has 1 hydraulic filter, just so you know. The 3-point lift capacity is a good one. On the 7320, it's 3,898 pounds, so 3,900 pounds. Slightly less on the 6620 at 3,594. So 3,600 pounds on the 6620, 3,900 pounds on the 7320, and that is measured at the correct 24 inches aft. Standard hydraulic remotes are one set with an option of another set. And the reason people say, well, why don't they just make 2 sets standard? Okay, it's not because they're cheap. It's they don't know what you'll want on the second. If you have a backhoe, you're going to want a detent style, to where you put the you engage the hydraulic and it stays open, you know, instead of springing back to the center. So there's 3 choices of remotes on your second remote. 3 styles of remote for your second remote. One would be another spring, so you engage it and it bounces back. Another one would be detent, where you engage it and it stays open. And the third one is a detent float model. So it'll detent and it'll offer some float, if that's, you know, a lot of people that do hay work appreciate that. Top speed on the machines is 24 miles an hour on the 7320 and 22 miles an hour on the 6620. And why is that? Why is there a difference? Probably because of the tire size. The tire size on the 7320, it has 2 inches larger tires than the 6620. And clearly that changes the overall gear ratio of the tractor as it operates. So the 7320 is a little bit faster. Ground clearance, again, because the tires are a little bit different, 2 inches different. The 7320 is 1 inch, has 1 inch more ground clearance, 17.3 inches versus 16.5 inches. Here's an advantage that the 6620 has over the 7320, and that would be turning radius. With the independent brakes activated, so the inside brake activated, this will turn at a radius of 11.2 feet, and the turning radius on the 6620 is 10.2 feet. The weights, the operating weights of the tractor, are again a little bit different, and that is because of the tires. The tires being 2 inches smaller on the 6620 means they also weigh a little bit less. The 7320 without a loader, just as it comes from the factory on the ground with no loader, is 5,589 pounds. The loader weighs a staggering 1,896 pounds, so almost a ton loader weight. Gives you an idea of the toughness of the loader. And those 2 numbers combined equals 7,485. So this tractor, as it sits, is 7,485 pounds. If you add ballast in the tires, we sell rim guard. Most people buy rim guard. And if you did that, that takes it up to 9,189 pounds. So a little over 9,000 pounds. The 6620 weighs 370 pounds less, and that would be the tire. So that's the chassis. That's the tractor itself. Pardon me. On the loader, they both use the same loader, KL7320. It is a self-leveling loader, and when I take the tractor out, I'll try to remember to demonstrate the self-leveling and why that's a cool thing. But it is a self-leveling loader. It has an 82-inch bucket that holds 21 cubic feet. The lift capacity of the loader on both tractors is 3,384 pounds. So 3,384 lift capacity to full height of 123 inches. And the 123 inches is with a level bucket, and that's about 10 feet 4 inches, so certainly enough to go over the side of any dump truck. Breakout force at the pivot pin is 5,000 5,359 pounds. Now, a lot of these specs are for the, for the gearheads that dig numbers, and that's one that you'd really have to be interested to know. But 5,359 pounds. The tractors are available with a Kioti backhoe, the model KB2485. I'm not going to get into the specs on the backhoe. It's a strong backhoe. It's a nasty backhoe, and it has a maximum digging depth of 8.5 feet. Now, standard equipment, most of these will be comfort and convenience items. High projection LED headlamps, say that fast. It has telescopic lower 3-point link ends, which anybody that's ever hooked up implements with and without telescopic link ends knows all about. Telescopic lower 3-point stabilizers, same thing, rinse and repeat. It makes hooking stuff up a whole lot easier. I mentioned it has an independent PTO, automatic PTO, and PTO cruise control. It has push-button 4-wheel drive, which sounds perhaps like a gimmick. It's not. Of course, it's much easier to engage the 4-wheel drive pushing a button than it is moving a lever, but it's more than that. And when I take the tractor out, I'll explain why. It has a 2-speed PTO, 540 regular and 540 economy, and the economy mode is good. It allows you, if you're operating a PTO implement that doesn't take much power at all to operate, it allows you to run the engine at a lower RPM to save fuel. For example, I always use the post hole digger. Anything will run a post hole digger. If you could rig it up to your riding lawnmower somehow, it would do it. It doesn't take horsepower to operate a post hole digger. Well, using a big tractor like this at 2,600 RPMs in a 4-cylinder, if you were doing it for 2 solid days around your property, it would make a difference in fuel being able to run it at 1,800 RPMs versus 2,600 RPMs, and that is why it has 540 and 540 economy. The option list is quite short. It has 2 options. One, as we discussed, would be the second hydraulic remote with 3 variants and a canopy. Gotta love you some Amazon. Operation of the tractor. If you've never had a tractor with Tier 4 emissions, and you hear stuff, people say, emission stuff, that's all. No. Tier 4 emissions is a wonderful thing, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not just the emissions that is nice in itself, because it doesn't blow black smoke, it doesn't gag you, it's extremely clean burning. More important is Kioti uses a common rail direct injected diesel engine as part of their Tier 4 emissions. And to put it into perspective, when you pull up, if you own a modern diesel truck, an F-250, a GM, Cummins, and a Ram, whatever. Or if you've ever pulled up next to one at a red light and it's as quiet as a gasoline engine, that is 100% because it is a common rail direct injected diesel engine. The fuel is injected at about 30,000 PSI. Yeah, cut your finger off. And it's the engine burn much cleaner, and it makes it a whole lot more fuel efficient. When you start the tractor up, you don't get the big puff of black smoke. It just doesn't do that. It starts as easily as any gasoline engine, if not easier. This tractor does have a glow plug, and you can preheat the glow plug to, if you wish, in the winter time to start it. And I guess if you were in Minnesota or Michigan or somewhere that's like stupid cold, I guess that would be something. But I've never, not once ever, needed to preheat the glow plugs to start the engine. But it's there if you need it, and that is again because of the common rail. So I like it. Now, what do you have to do to enjoy all this goodness? Well, not much, but there's a couple things. One is you need to run the tractor at the RPMs that it needs to run at. If you're operating the tractor, working it hard, you're breaking ground, you're pulling a 12-foot or 15-foot cutter, it needs to run at 2,600 RPMs. If you're using 540 economy, it needs to run at 1800 RPMs. Anytime the tractor is within that zone, it is cleaning its particulate matter itself. It's going to treat and burn off its particulate matter without any input from you. And the times that it's not run at those kind of RPMs, if you're the type that lopes the engine along, like it was a 2-cylinder Pop & John from the 1920s, it will require manual regens, manual regenerations. There's a button on the column that is a regen button, and what happens is if you're operating the tractor at the proper RPMs, then every once in a while a yellow light may come on, and it's letting you know, it's letting you know that it is doing its own little burn cycle. So please keep operating the tractor as you are. In fact, it sucks some horsepower to do that, so feel free to increase the RPMs to get back to work and do your stuff. And just work right through it. Just takes a few minutes. If you were to ignore that or shut it off several times during its yellow phase, or if you're loping the engine along, not running it at RPMs, then a red light comes on, and that requires a manual regen. You would park the tractor, set the brake, put the transmission in neutral, push and hold the regen button, and the engine it'll start winding up, and you go find something to do for 20 minutes, and it does its regen, and when it's done, it idles back down, and you're ready to go for another however long you want to. It doesn't injure the engine if you're a low RPM person, but you'll have to do regens. And the way to eliminate that is, as I said, run it at the proper RPMs. And I like to tell people, you wouldn't, if you had a riding lawnmower with a Briggs & Stratton engine on it, Kohler, Kawasaki, whatever, those all run at the same, I don't know if you know this, they all run at the same speed, 3,600 RPMs. Any of those single cylinder engines run at 3,600 RPMs. You wouldn't try to operate that machine, you wouldn't try to cut grass at half of that, at half throttle. No, you know that to operate correctly, to do the job, and to cool itself, because they have a fan that sucks in air, it needs to run at full RPMs, and it's not any different here. The engine is designed to stretch its legs, and so keep that in mind, and don't be fearful of it. It'll make for the finest, most enjoyable and nicest to operate engine you've ever had. Let's go drive one. I'm going to pull around a RX7320 power shuttle. We'll start it, and we'll demonstrate the power shuttle and maybe talk a little bit about the self-leveling loader, and you'll get to enjoy how quiet and smooth the engine, which is a modern marvel, operates. So let's go do that now. If you've never owned a power shuttle tractor, the only way really to explain it is to demonstrate it. So I'm gonna take a drive, and hopefully I can film it, and you'll see how cool it is. By the way, did you know that Ironcraft makes 8-foot pull-type cutters? Yeah, it's a dandy right there. Power shuttles use a dual clutch system. Instead of using a cable to clutch, to separate the clutch from the pressure plate internally, they use an electronic servo that with a dual clutch design that does it electronically, and it has proven to be a lot more reliable in the long term because there is no cable, there is no cable stretching, cable adjusting. It electronically, and it works good. The same basic system as my goodness, as a Lamborghini would have, that Corvette would have, your F-250. It's such an efficient way to do it. That's the reason why you can't get a manual transmission anymore on a GM truck, a Ford truck, a Ram truck. They offer only automatics because the clutches and the clutch cables, I know it's a 100-year-old design, but there was a better way, and the better way was electronically. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does.
All right, so anyway, power shuttle. You have a regular 4-speed transmission with 3 ranges, so 12 speeds. 12 speeds forward, 12 speeds reverse. So far, just like any other shuttle shift. It electronically operates the clutch, separates clutch from the pressure plate during the shift, or during the forward and backward. and it adds a thumb clutch right on the gear shift, so you can shift like first gear, foot clutch, second gear, foot clutch, third gear. That's cool. Or first gear, thumb clutch, second gear, thumb clutch, third gear. So as you can tell, if you're on this thing 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day, it is a leg saver, and that's why it's there. By the way, the RX series tractor has a foot operated tilt wheel, which I just think is wonderful. It also has push button 4-wheel drive, which might sound like a gimmick, but it's not. Besides being, you know, as convenient as can be, you just push the button. The reason it has it, I'll tell you, if you're driving it, you put your foot on the brakes, and you're 2-wheel drive, you put your foot on the brakes, you'll see the 4-wheel drive light come on, and that's not a fluke, it really is coming on. Kiot's designed it to where in 2-wheel drive, when you put your foot on the brake, it temporarily, and without you even noticing, puts it in 4-wheel drive. And the reason it does that is you're going downhill by locking it 4 corners into the transmission. All 4 corners are going the same speed. It practically eliminates the chance of a runaway. If somebody doesn't tell you it has it, you wouldn't know. All right, so usually if I'm going to use the power shuttle, I'll kick the RPMs up to about 1500. So I'm going to turn the RPMs just up a little bit. The range selector is in high. The gear shift right now is in neutral, but I'm going to put it up in first gear. My foot is not on the clutch, and I just put it in first gear. And to go, I simply do that. See if I can take this on the street, shoot across the street real quick. When you're shifting, third into second, second into first. I'll show you the real joy of the power shuttle. That's bragging about the front point right there. Okay, I just put it back in shuttle in the neutral. So, let's say that you're going back and forth, you're doing dirt work or whatever, you're scraping a driveway, whatever you're doing. Okay, so you're going forward, and it's time to reverse, you just pull it in reverse. How cool is that? It won't let you screw it up. If you do it at too high of an RPM, it won't engage until it's at a safe speed for you and for mechanically for the tractor. That is the joy of the power shuttle. It's as easy as a hydrostat. The RX tractor has a self-leveling loader, and you hear me say that, but here's kind of what it looks like. It's pretty cool. See the leveling rod that's coming up and down? Okay, first off, when it's like that, you know the bucket is level with the ground. So let's say that you're doing some rock work, you put that down, you tilt into the load, you drive forward, you get a big old scoop, and you start raising up. So you curl it, and you start raising up. Check out the bucket. It maintains the same angle as you started with. what's cool about that. So you get your big scoop, you roll it back, and you pull it up. I can back up with the power shuttle, and I don't have to look to see if that's going to dump the load onto the hood of my tractor, because it's not. So I get my scoop, I curl it back, and I just throw it in reverse and I start backing up. I'm not even looking at it. And the rocks are not going to roll back on the hood of my tractor. That is the joy of a self-leveling motor. By the way, is that engine not just a delight to listen to? It's extremely smooth. It's extremely quiet. It's very efficient. What you heard there, the jiggling, was that. So let me get rid of that noise and turn it back on. Smooth as snot. What a wonderful motor.
That's about it. That's what I know about the Kioti RX7320 power shuttle. We talked only about an open station today. All the specs are the same on the cab, except of course the cab weighs a little bit more. And I should have pointed out this one that I'm standing in front of has industrial tires, R4 tires. The standard tire would be an Ag R1 tire, but these are optional and some people like them. Most people don't, but some people do, and it's available with either. If you have questions on the RX or anything else that Kioti does or anything we do here, you can email me, Mike at lsetractor.com, Mike at LSE, like Larry, Stove Sand Equipment, tractor.com. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you'll consider buying one, and I really hope you'll consider buying one from me. Thank you.